New York City is one of the biggest entertainment markets in the entire world. Unfortunately, the New York Knicks have failed to meet the standards of this amazing city over the past half century. The Knicks always seem to be a step behind the rest of the league in terms of acquiring stars and find themselves paying over $100 million each to these three. A once storied franchise brought pride to those attending the legendary Madison Square Garden on a nightly basis now finds themselves a laughingstock in NBA discussions. However, today marks the start of a new era of New York Knicks basketball as we look to bring a championship to the Big Apple for the first time since 1973. With that being said, I would like to welcome everybody to the very first episode of the New York Knicks MyNBA franchise here on NBA 2K23. Man, that feels good to say. If you're excited for more 2K23 content here on the channel, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new so you don't miss out on any of the content. I'm excited to kick this series off here with the New York Knicks. It should be a lot of fun rebuilding this once storied organization who has very high expectations year in and year out as one of the biggest market teams in all of sports. We will be starting in the modern era with the current 2022 rosters. I plan on making a few videos with the era stuff in the past, but for this series, we will be focused on the modern day NBA. For those who have never watched a franchise series on my channel, the two things I really focus on are realism and immersiveness. I really focus on keeping my series pretty realistic. That doesn't mean we're going to go out and avoid making trades and whatnot entirely, but I want to keep the series realistic and fun, and I also pride myself and my channel on immersion. I like getting my subscribers involved with the draft class. I will let my subscribers have an opportunity to make the prospects, so if you would like to make a player for the draft class in this series, make sure to go join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Alright, let's now break down this roster and take a look at what we'll be working with here to start the series. At the top of this roster, there are three core building blocks, I would say, as we start with RJ Barrett, the highest rated player on the roster at an 84 overall. At just 22 years old, Barrett is going to be entering his fourth season out of Duke and is without a doubt the best long-term piece we have on our roster. RJ Barrett is 100% going to be a player we build around going forward, and although he does have his flaws in his game, he is a bright young star, and I think he has the swagger fit for a market like New York. He's going to be sticking around for the next 5 years with his new contract extension, and is a player who I feel very confident in building around for the future. Barrett is a two-way wing who possesses great size and length. He's a very solid perimeter defender, and he's a solid scorer as well, although his efficiencies were quite low last year, and his shooting splits throughout his entire career have been shaky. He definitely knows how to get the ball in the bucket. He's a good playmaker for himself as well as others on the offensive end of the floor, and although he only has 1 year left on his deal in the game, I'm going to edit his contract so it matches up with what he has in real life, the new 4-year max extension that he signed shortly before the Donovan Mitchell trade this past week. Along with RJ Barrett, we have Jalen Brunson here as well, who was signed to a big contract in free agency from the Dallas Mavericks. It was no secret since the start of the offseason that the Knicks heavily valued Jalen Brunson, and they were able to add him to the team. Brunson is coming off a breakout season last year in Dallas in which he averaged 16, 5, and 4 on high shooting efficiency, and last year in the playoffs he was their clear number 2 option. However, he's going to have a much increased role here with the Knicks. He's going to be our main ball handler, he's going to be our main on-ball passer and playmaker, and he never really has been that in Dallas because they've always had Luka Doncic to run the offense. So we don't know if Jalen Brunson can be the primary leader of an offensive unit. I think Brunson has the ability to do so. He's a winning basketball player, and he's been a winner since his college career in which he won 2 championships at Villanova. He's under contract for 4 seasons, including a player option for the 4th year, and is a player who you should definitely expect to stick around on this roster for years to come. Along with Barrett and Brunson, the other piece of this, I guess you could call it Big 3, is Julius Randle, who has definitely been a roller coaster through his Knicks career. There's been a lot of ups and downs since he signed in the summer of 2019. The numbers here look really solid, particularly his second season with the Knicks, in which he averaged 24, 10, and 6 on very high efficiency, winning the Most Improved Player award, leading the Knicks to the playoffs, and grabbing an All-NBA second-team spot. However, last year he regressed down to the mean, and I don't think we can really expect the 2020-2021 Julius Randle going forward. However, he is still a very good player. He's one of the best passing big men in the NBA, and if you guys know how I like to build my teams, I prioritize playmaking as one of the most important things. He's a solid scorer. He's an okay defender. I'm not sure that he's going to be a long-term piece here. He very well could be trade bait, but we will be keeping him for the start, and we're going to try to have him as a focal point for this team. However, of our top 3 guys, I think it's by far the most likely that Randle does not make it to the end of his contract compared to Brunson and Barrett. Randle has a lot to prove going into his 9th NBA season, and he's going to get the opportunity, so hopefully he can prove to be a long-term piece on this roster. So for now, Barrett, Brunson, and Randle will be the main 3 players to start this series, but as we go along, that may not be the case. After those 3, the next most notable player on the roster would have to be Mitchell Robinson, who signed a 4-year extension for $60 million in the offseason, so you can certainly expect him to stick around as well. I really like Robinson going forward, and I know the numbers don't necessarily pop off the page. 8.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, a little bit under 2 blocks per game. He's more of a traditional big man who dominates the post. However, I honestly prefer more traditional centers rather than a stretch who can space the floor but isn't going to provide good interior defense. Robinson's one of the best shot blockers in the NBA. He's one of the most efficient scorers, albeit he doesn't have much value outside of the paint, but he is a lockdown force offensively and defensively down low. His contract really isn't that bad. It's $15 million a season, which I think is completely fair value for a player of his caliber, especially only being 24 years old. Those 4 players I can confidently say will be in the starting lineup. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with that 5th spot. For now, I think it'll be Evan Fournier, who starts at the 2 guard. Fournier is a 29-year-old wing from France. He's been a highly productive player through his 10-year NBA career, mostly with the Orlando Magic. He signed a big contract in the summer of 2021 with the New York Knicks and is under contract for 3 more seasons. I'm not entirely sure Fournier is going to be a building piece going forward. He's certainly not a bad player at all, which is why I think for now he will be in the opening day starting lineup. But nearing the age of 30, I'm not entirely sure that he's going to be a long-term piece. His contract is not bad enough to where it's not tradable. So because of that, I think he could be really good trade bait in the future. He has a team option for 2024. If he keeps up his current pace and is still on the roster by then, I would probably expect us to decline that. So realistically, we have 2 more years of Evan Fournier barring a trade. Let's take a look at the second unit now, which is actually a very young group. Most of our bench players are on their rookie deals and are very young. However, the 6th man will likely be veteran point guard Derrick Rose. The youngest MVP in NBA history is still highly productive at the age of 34. Obviously, he's nowhere what he used to be with the Chicago Bulls, but he is still a very productive player entering his 14th NBA season. I think Derrick Rose's entire career deserves a lot of credit, and I think when it's all said and done, he will be a Hall of Famer. Obviously, his peak with the Bulls was spectacular, but as he's gotten older and has lost athleticism due to his injury, he's still been able to stick around. He's really developed nicely as a passer. His three-point shot has drastically improved throughout his career, and he has high basketball IQ, and if he wasn't able to develop those things, he wouldn't have a role here in the NBA. So he's been able to make himself a lot of money over these past 5, 6, 7 years because of his improvements in other areas. Even though his athleticism has gone down, he's under contract for 2 more years with a team option in year 2. Some of the other young bench options include Emmanuel Quickley. We know him from our Sonic series last season in NBA 2K22, where he was on the team for only 1 season, but he was a big part of our championship squad in Season 4. I think Quickley will be best suited as our long-term 6th man. I think him as instant offense and a bucket getter would be perfect for the second unit. I don't know if he's ever going to be a consistent enough all-around player to be a starter. He's a passable defender. He's an okay playmaker. He definitely improved as a passer last year compared to his rookie season, but he's certainly a score-first player, and I think at his peak, he's going to be a Jamal Crawford or Lou Williams type of player. Not to say he'll be as good as either one of those guys, but I think he can have that role as our long-term sixth man. I would certainly like to keep him around long-term, and we do have 2 more years left on his rookie contract. I'm not entirely sure how much money he's going to ask for, and obviously that'll weigh a part in if we bring him back long-term, but he is a player who I can certainly see as a big piece of our future going forward. Along with Emmanuel Quickley, another player the Knicks drafted in 2020, Obi Toppin, who we know from our Cleveland Cavaliers series in NBA 2K21. Toppin's a very interesting case because he definitely improved from his rookie season to last year, but I still wouldn't say he has lived up to being the 8th overall pick. Obi Toppin is a human highlight reel and is the perfect type of young player to have on a big market team like the Knicks playing at Madison Square Garden. I'm not entirely sure what Toppin's long-term role is going to be because he still has a lot of question marks about his game. He's 6'9", 220 pounds. I don't think he is the size and strength to consistently produce down low, but I also don't think he has the quickness to hang on the perimeter. So he's a little bit of a tweener. I'm not entirely sure how he's going to develop, but we do have 2 more years of him under team control, and if he continues to improve, I'd love to keep him around as a piece of the future. Another young player on the bench to watch out for is Cameron Reddish. If you've been around the channel for a little while, you're definitely going to know Cam Reddish quite well. We had him in our NBA 2K21 MyNBA series with the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he developed as a great role player for us. And then last year in my Sonics MyNBA, he was our #1 overall pick in the expansion draft and developed into a very solid role player in that series as well. Reddish has been a fan favorite of many of the viewers over the past couple of seasons, and I'm excited to have him again. However, just because he's a fan favorite doesn't mean he's going to stick around. He's got to earn his spot. Reddish is on the final year of his contract, and it's certainly far from a sure thing that he's going to be a long-term piece here. Reports have said in real life that Reddish has asked for a trade for the Knicks because he doesn't like his role. However, Reddish himself has denied these claims. I don't plan on trading Cam Reddish this season. It's my team now. I can do what I want, and I think I want to build around Cam Reddish. However, he's going to have to produce off the bench. He needs to be more consistent as an offensive player. He's a very good perimeter defender, but he needs to be more efficient as a scorer, continue to improve as a playmaker, and if he can do that this season, then maybe we will look to extend him this coming offseason, as this is the final year of his contract. Some other players down the roster to watch out for include big man Isaiah Hartenstein, who was signed in the offseason from the Los Angeles Clippers to a 2-year, $16 million deal. The German-born center's coming off a career year with averages of 8.3 points and 4.9 rebounds. For now, he'll be the backup center to Mitchell Robinson. I think he's a fine player. He doesn't have any major strengths to his game, and he is only 24 years old, so he certainly could improve. I don't think we're going to be looking at him as a long-term piece, certainly not a long-term starter, but maybe if he plays well over the next 2 seasons, he can be our long-term backup center going forward. Some young players who I'm excited to develop include Quentin Grimes, who was picked in the first round last year out of the University of Houston. He had a great college career with Houston after once being a 5-star recruit and struggling early on in college in his first season at Kansas. Grimes showed some really solid flashes as a rookie last year, and although I'm not sure he's going to start the season as a regular rotation player, we did see some upside from Grimes as a rookie. Solid 3-point shooter, decent enough playmaker, improving defender. I think there's a lot to like with Quentin Grimes going forward, and I'm definitely going to hope to get him to the rotation sooner rather than later. Another player who was a rookie last year is Miles Deuce McBride out of West Virginia. He played sparingly as a rookie, had some good moments, but was overall not the best. I do like him as a possible backup piece going forward. He reminds me a lot of another former West Virginia guard in Javon Carter. Both players are gritty, tough-nosed, defense-first type of players. And if Miles McBride can develop into Javon Carter, then I would be very happy. And I think McBride in that case could be a solid piece going forward. Jericho Sims was drafted late in the second round last year by the Knicks. He's a raw player, but he is a pogo stick athlete. He tested for one of the highest vertical jumps in NBA Combine history. So if nothing else for now, he's a lob threat. He doesn't really have much of the game outside of the paint, but maybe he can develop at his ceiling to a Mitchell Robinson type of player, because both of them do have a lot of similarities. It's just that Mitchell Robinson is a lot better. The Knicks have one rookie on their roster, that being Trevor Keels, who they drafted in the second round last year. Their first rounder, Ousmane Dieng, was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for cash and future first round picks. So that's why they don't have a first round rookie. Although I do like Keels going forward. He's only 19 years old. He was one of the youngest players in this year's NBA draft, and he was a key piece of Duke's Final Four team this past season. He's a little bit raw, but at 6'5", he sees the floor well. He's a really good playmaker for his size. The defense is improving. The scoring is improving. He's athletic. He's got good size. I think he can be a long-term piece for the future if he develops. And then some of the other guys at the end of the bench include Keelan Martin, along with Faron Hunt. I don't really see either of those guys as pieces going forward, but they're also here. One of the things I'm most excited about this team is the draft picks. The Knicks have quite a few future picks going forward. I know it says they only have 2 first-round picks here, but that's not true. The Knicks have up to 4 first-round picks in 2023. They have their own pick. They have this Mavericks pick that's top 10 protected from the Kristaps Porzingis trade. But they also have a heavily protected first-round pick from the Detroit Pistons. It'll be top 18 protected next year, and the protections will continue but go down over the next few seasons. And then we also have a top 14 projected pick from the Washington Wizards. Just like the Pistons pick, it's heavily protected, and it's not going to ever be a super high pick, most likely. But, hey, we could have up to 4 first-round picks this year, and if not, we'll continue to stockpile on picks in the future. The head coach of this team is Tom Thibodeau, once a very good coach with the Bulls, now could be fighting for his job in New York. Thibodeau has historically always played his starters a ton of minutes, and his starters generally lead the league in terms of minutes. I'm going to try to set my rotations like Thibodeau would, but again, it's also my team, and I want the young guys off the bench to play a lot. As for the GM, it'll be Buzz Wigginton Jr., the former Seattle Sonic legend. He now has gray hair, and he looks like a mad scientist, apparently. So just go with it, I guess. There aren't many other faces that looked like him, so I went with this. He does not look like he's aged gracefully since retiring from the NBA. Let's take a look at our rotation here to start season number 1. I already revealed the starting lineup throughout the video, but for visual perspective, Jalen Brunson will run the point, Fournier at the 2, Barrett at the 3, Randall at the 4, and the man in the middle is going to be Mitchell Robinson. I think other than Fournier, of those other 4 players had their starting spots pretty much comfortably. And then off the bench, the second unit will be Rose, Quickly, Toppin, Reddish, and Hartenstein. And again, I would love to get guys like Grimes and McBride and maybe Sims as well some playing time throughout the season. And they may be able to enter the rotation based on trades or injuries or whatever happens to the rest of the roster. In the next episode, we're going to play our first game against the Memphis Grizzlies and our home opener against the Detroit Pistons. Normally, I like to get through 10 to 15 games per episode. I usually play 2 and sim the rest. Normally, I don't like to play back-to-back games, but since it is our season opener and our home opener, I figured I would do that. And then we'll probably sim through the first couple of weeks of November, along with obviously the end of October as well. So that's going to wrap up the episode. I hope everybody enjoyed and is excited for more here of the New York Knicks MyNBA franchise series. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.